All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to open up by giving all the praises, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rachakudash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well and preach the truth and sincerity. Shalom to the hopeful elect. And this is the brother Amawan Ayash from the GMS Indianapolis camp, coming back at you with another quick lesson through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. And in today's lesson, I have an article from the End Time Headlines app, and it's dealing with Iran preparing for missile strikes from the U.S. and the state of Israel. And that's lucky if I sound a little funny. I've been dealing with a little something for the past few days. My throat kind of fucked up. But nonetheless, I wanted to go into this article and bring out a quick edifying lesson. Lord willing, is edifying to the body out there. But as you can see by the headlines, it says Iran is actively preparing for Israeli and U.S. strikes. It says continues to build up air defense systems, which ultimately these three countries all play a key part in prophecy. All right, we understand that the Israelis, right, the state of Israel, they're going to be responsible, right, for drawing America and the other nations into war, right? When we read the book of Jeremiah, chapter 50 and verse 45, it says, "Therefore hear ye the counsel of the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, that he hath taken against Babylon," which Babylon prophetically being America today. It says, and his purposes that he hath purposed against the land of the Chaldeans. Surely the least of the flock shall draw them out. Surely he shall make their habitation desolate with them. So ultimately the least of the flock, all right, being the state of Israel, the Amalekites, ultimately they're going to be responsible for drawing America and all the nations into this final world war, right? World War III, which in the scriptures to be Armageddon, in the Hebrew Harmagadwan, meaning a mountain or hill of troops. You see? So, and at the end of the day, we understand the end result of that, all right, is going to be the complete destruction of Babylon the Great, a.k.a. America, as well as the state of Israel. The difference is America itself will never be built back up or inhabited ever again, all right, but ultimately the state of Israel, that indeed will be built back up in our kingdom, right, and will be the new headquarters of Yahweh Shai's kingdom, right, which is going to be established in righteousness. You see? So this is why the state of Israel plays a key part in prophecy, because they're going to be responsible, right, for drawing all the other for drawing America and all the other nations into battle. So I can bear with me. So let's go from there to the book of Matthew, the 24th chapter, and this is Yahweh Shai speaking in the red letter. In verse 6, it says, "And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled." You see, so ultimately when we see stories and articles like this pop up and new information regarding, all right, to war between the nations comes up, ultimately we're not supposed to be troubled because, one, this is part of prophecy, right? And two, ultimately we understand this is leading to us as a people, all right, us Israelites, which consists of the so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, are being delivered and going home. See, because we understand that the Lord, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, is gathering the nations on our behalf and is getting ready to pour upon them his indignation for everything they've done unto the children of Israel. You see? So, hey, man, we're not to be troubled because ultimately, hey, this is all leading unto the kingdom of heaven, right, and our deliverance. It says, "For all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet." It says, "For nation shall rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom." And that's what we see when we see these various different nations warring against each other. You see? It says, "And there should be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places." So certain evils, right, certain judgments must take place upon the planet Earth before we be delivered. Okay? Verse 8, it says, "All these are the beginning of sorrows," meaning what? Ultimately, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai is just getting warmed up when he brings things upon the planet Earth. All right? All these judgments and all these things happening in the planet Earth, man, it all leads to one thing, man. The end of Babylon the Great, a.k.a. America. You see? So let me go from there since I had mentioned that the Lord is doing this for our sakes and getting ready to pour upon the nations his indignation for what they've done unto us, right? It's like it. Damn, where's my fucking water? Oh, here it go. Zephaniah chapter 3 verse 8 says, "Therefore wait ye upon me, saith the Lord, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, until the day that I rise up to the prey from my determination." And who's the prey? The heathen nations. You see? All right, the Lord is preying upon the nations because of what the heathen nations have preyed upon us, man. You see? And now the Lord once again is gathering those armies to the valley of Yahweh, which is located in the Persian Gulf, all right, to pour upon them that judgment. You see? Ultimately, for everything that they've done unto the children of Israel. It says, until the day that I rise up to the prey, excuse me. It says, "For my determination is to gather the nations, that I may assemble the kingdoms, to pour upon them mine indignation," which the word indignation goes into the Lord's righteous anger. You see? It says, "Even all my fierce anger," which ultimately the Lord's indignation is going to come in the form of those ICBM nuclear missiles, as well as the concentrated fire laser beams coming from the chariots. You see, because, we understand according to prophecy that Yahweh Shai and the holy angels are going to intervene during World War III, right? You can read 2nd Esdras, the 13th chapter, the first 11 or so verses. And what's going to happen is these nations, man, they're going to turn, all right, and fight against Yahweh Shai and the angels, and ultimately they're going to miserably lose. You see? So once again, Yahweh Shai and the angels are shooting those concentrated fire laser beams from the chariots. That's also part of the Lord's indignation being poured upon the heathens. And it says, "For all the earth shall be devoured with the fire of my jealousy," which we understand ultimately, the whole earth isn't going to, blow up and burst into flames. When Yahweh Shai returns, ultimately you're going to have America be completely destroyed and turned into that lake of fire. You see? So let's read into the article a little bit. And I'm going to make this quick. Currently at the plantation, but the Lord's will I could do a second video after this one later on. But nonetheless, it says, amid escalating tensions in the Middle East, Iran is intensifying efforts to strengthen its air defense systems, anticipating potential military strikes from Israel and the United States. According to a report by the Jerusalem Post, Iran has significantly increased investments in its air defense infrastructure, driven by concerns over the collapse of ongoing nuclear negotiations and the possibility of retaliatory attacks. The Jerusalem Post reports that Iran has relocated several anti-aircraft missile launchers to protect key nuclear sites, such as Natanz and Fordo. It says this strategic repositioning follows significant losses to Iran's air defense capabilities with a substantial portion of its advanced Russian-made S-300 missile systems damaged or destroyed during Israeli airstrikes in April and October 2024. And you see, that's the thing. You see, Iran, they get a lot of their military equipment from Russia, because we understand, according to Ezekiel the 38th chapter, right, when it talks about Gog being a guard into various different nations. All right, who was Gog representative of? All right, that would be Russia today. You see, and when you read through the list of nations, which, as a matter of fact, let's get it. Ezekiel chapter 38, and starting at verse 1. So I can bear with me 1 second. It says, "And the word of the Lord, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog," right, which ultimately this is dealing with, once again, Russia, right? It says, "the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal," which this is all centered in the area of Turkey. You see, so ultimately, even Turkey, right, is going to play a key part in prophecy, because Turkey is one of the nations that is going to be backing up Russia in this coming world war. It says, and say, thus saith the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, behold, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal. And I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws, and I will bring thee forth, and all thine army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords. So when you're putting hooks into their jaws, also mean that the Lord is saying he's leading them into the battle. All right, and we understand that it's the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, all right, gathering all these nations to the battle, right? So the Lord, he's going to turn, all right, Russia back to that fierce USSR state, man. You see? It says, verse 5, it says Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya. Now, Persia, right, is associated with modern-day Iran. And as a matter of fact, let's go ahead and look that up, okay? It's like it. Bear with me 1 second. It says, yes, Persia is historically and culturally associated with Iran. It says in the past, the term Persia was commonly used to refer to the region now known as Iran, particularly in the West. So you see, all right, when we read Ezekiel the 38th chapter, right, and it's going to the nations that's going to be backed up by Russia. It says what? Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya. All right, so Persia is who? Iran. It says with them, all of them with shield and helmet. You see? So ultimately, once again, Iran is going to be a key player, or a key part in prophecy, because ultimately, all right, the Lord, he's going to use them as well, all right, to shoot missiles over here at Babylon the Great, aka America. You see? So knowing that, what, like we read, all right, how Iran had a Russian-made S-300 missile system. Guess what, man? When we read further, it says, verse 6, Gomer and all his bands, the house of Togarmah of the north quarters and all his bands, still dealing with Turkey. It says, and many people with thee. It says, be thou prepared and prepare for thyself, thou and all thy company that are assembled unto thee, and be thou a guard unto them. So Russia is like a big brother, all right, to these nations, man. Which is why Russia is supplies, these other nations, such as Iran and Turkey, so on and so forth, with these different military equipment, right? These defense systems and missiles and things of that nature, right? So, hey, man, this is prophecy, right, being fulfilled. It says, despite these setbacks, experts suggest that Iran has managed to repair or maintain many components of its air defense network, showcasing resilience in its military infrastructure. A senior Iranian military official emphasized the country's readiness, stating that enemies of the Iranian nation should understand that any violation of our airspace will cause them significant harm. This defiant rhetoric underscores Iran's determination to deter potential aggressors, particularly as it braces for attacks that could target its nuclear and energy facilities. The buildup of Iran's air defenses comes in the wake of repeated exchanges of hostilities with Israel. It says in 2024, Iran launched 2 direct missile attacks on Israel, both of which were largely intercepted by Israeli and allied air defenses, including support from the United States. You see, so we can see that everything that the state of Israel is doing is ultimately dragging our America into their mess. You see, and eventually, all the nations are going to be drawn into battle, and boom, there's World War III. All right, but the thing is, even when we see these things, all right, we gotta always remember that the mandatory implementation of the mark of the beast, all right, has to come to pass. Not to get off topic, right? But that must come to pass, man. And then things are truly gonna speed up, man. It says, It says Israel responded with precision strikes on Iranian military targets, including missile production facilities and air defense systems, weakening Iran's military posture. The Jerusalem Post highlights that Iran's current military vulnerabilities, combined with the weakening of its regional proxies like Hamas and Hezbollah, have left it in a precarious position. It says, this has prompted Iran to fortify its defenses, particularly around critical nuclear and missile sites, as it anticipates a potential Israeli strike aimed at disrupting its nuclear program. And you can see that's the end of the article. But ultimately, with everything that's going on in the world, between these nations, the tensions and things of that nature, ultimately, those of us in the know, we understand that this is all leading to one thing, man. And that's the final World War, World War III. So let me grab a couple scriptures pertaining to that. Let's go to the book of Revelation, chapter 11. And beginning at verse 14, it says, the second woe was past, and behold, the third woe cometh quickly. Now, what are these woes going into? The world wars. You see, it says the second woe was past, meaning World War II. It says what? And behold, the third woe cometh quickly. So, World War III is right around the corner, man, as we speak. Verse 15, and the seventh angel sounded, and there were great voices in heaven saying, the kingdoms of this world are become the kingdoms of our Lord. And this is post-World War III. So like we were going to earlier, all right, these things must come to pass before Yahushai's righteous kingdom is established upon the planet Earth, and before we receive deliverance, man. Lord will be that elect number. It says the kingdoms of this world are become the kingdoms of our Lord and of his anointed, and he shall reign forever and ever. You see? So after America is destroyed in World War III, guess what, man? The Israelites are going on to eternal rulership, man, beginning with the elect. You see? So let's go from there to Isaiah chapter 9 and verse 5. It says, for every battle of the warrior is with confused noise and garments rolled in blood. You see, and these are talking about wars fought in days of old, man. All right, it was more close up, more close quarters, right? Blood splattered everywhere. Swords and shields and spears, right? Even hand-to-hand combat. Men screaming at one another, roaring battle cries, so on and so forth, right? That's how wars in the ancient days were fought. But this one, right, as it goes on to read, but this shall be with burning and fuel of fire. Meaning what? Ultimately, this coming World War, which we know is to be World War III, is going to be fought solely with those ICBM nuclear missiles, man. And the end result is what? That Babylon the Great, a.k.a. America, is going to be completely destroyed, never inhabited again, right? And what? The state of Israel is going to be destroyed. The land of Israel is going to be destroyed. But that will be built back up in our kingdom. You see? So let's go from there to Isaiah, the 13th chapter. And verse 4. It says, the noise of a multitude in the mountains, like as of a great people. A tumultuous noise of the kingdoms of nations gathered together. The Lord, Yahweh Ba'ashem, Yahushai of hosts, mustereth the host of the battle. And another word for muster is to gather. You see, so ultimately it's the Lord, Yahweh Ba'ashem, Yahushai, pulling the strings of these nations and having them do his bidding. And also we understand that the Lord, Yahweh Ba'ashem, Yahushai, is gathering them to the final battle, to fulfill prophecy. It says, verse 5, they come from a far country, from the end of heaven, even the Lord, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, and the weapons of his indignation. Going to what? Those nuclear missiles, man. And the ICBM nuclear missiles. To destroy the whole land. What land? Babylon the Great, a.k.a. America. All right, and we understand also the land of Israel is going to be destroyed too in this coming World War. You see? So ultimately, everything we're seeing and reading about is leading to this one thing, man. The destruction of America. Okay? And I'll leave you with this in the book of Joel, the 3rd chapter, and starting at verse 9. It says, proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, prepare war. All right, these being the natural Gentiles, the actual heathen nations. It says, wake up the mighty men, let all the men of war draw near, let them come up. Beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. All right, which plowshares and pruning hooks Those are all weapons are used for farming and agriculture. So also we understand that now is not the time of farming, but rather we're in a time of war. As Ecclesiastes, the 3rd chapter, goes into, it says, let the weak say I am strong. You see, because we have these nations who are now receiving access to nuclear capabilities, which, all right, that's leveling the playing field for this coming world war. You see, so all these nations are going to be equipped with missiles to shoot over here at Babylon the Great, aka America. It says, assemble yourselves and come, all ye heathen, and gather yourselves together round about. Thither cause thy mighty ones to come down, O Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, which also mean the mighty ones of the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai are the angels. All right, we mentioned 2nd Ezra 13 that Yahweh Shai and the holy angels, they're going to intervene during World War III, and ultimately they're going to destroy the heathen nations. Okay, excuse me. And furthermore, when you read Psalms chapter 103 and verse 20, let me get that, just to prove to you that the mighty ones of the Lord are the angels, right? And we'll read it straight in the NLT. Psalms 103 and verse 20 in the NLT. It says, praise the Lord, you angels, you mighty ones. You see? So the Lord's mighty ones are who? The angels, man. It says, who carry out his plans, listening for each of his commands. You see? So once again, the mighty ones of the Lord being the angels of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, all right, they're going to come down here and back up Yahweh Shai and what? Destroying the heathen nations, man. Right? Destroying the armies of the nations. All right, so finishing off in Joel 3 and 12, it says, let the heathen be wakened and come up to the valley of Yahweh Shaphat, which we mentioned this earlier, and this is located over there in the Persian Gulf. You see, which also that's where the Lord is going to gather these nations to pour upon them his indignation. It says, for there will I sit to judge all the heathen round about. You see, and we understand that the Lord is doing this for the controversies of Zion. See, which when you read Isaiah the 34th chapter, as you're going into a sacrifice that the Lord is getting ready to perform at Basra. All right, and ultimately how the fear of the Lord is upon all armies. But I'm gonna jump straight to the point. Isaiah 34 and 8, it says, for it is the day of the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai's vengeance, and the year of recompenses for the controversy of Zion. Recompenses going to what? Payback. So the Lord is getting ready to pay back Edom, are in all the heathen nations for everything they have done unto the children of Israel. You see? So once again, all right, the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, he's gathering the nations, all right, for the final battle to pour upon them his indignation, ultimately for everything that they've done unto the children of Israel. You see? So these heathens, man, they're getting ready to pay big time, man. Okay? So without further ado, I'm going to close out right there. I pray this lesson was edifying to the body, and I pray that you got something out of this. And without further ado, I'd like to close out by giving all the praises, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rechakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well and preach the truth and sincerity. Shalom to the whole elect, and Lord, will I see you in the next lesson. Until then, I say shalom.